Hello, can you hear me? Crikey, thanks for that. Thanks for having me here. Simple? You never said simple. Okay, I've got a challenge now. I've got a lot of slides to get through in 25 minutes, and there isn't anything simple about circular textiles. In fact, I actually do have a slide which says embrace the complexity. But you'll be pleased to hear that I'm quite a simple speaker, so I think you're gonna, enjoy what I've got to say. And I do think it's about huge potential and opportunities for designers. Design isn't what it used to be. Design is about now social equity, it's about change, it's about our role and our position in the world and what's happening. It's not just about making a product, it's not just making a textile. So my keynote this morning is very much about this broader context. It's actually the broadest definition of circularity and what kind of social, cultural change we need to embrace and work with as well as circular materials. So, quick background, then let's have a look at circularity in textiles, and then I've got some future themes for you, some future focus. I come from a point of view of designing and making textiles, hands-on materials, making, thinking through the making, and then in a way walking away and thinking about it afterwards and realizing what kind of theory and ideas are emerging from the making. So making and materials first. And from that, we have the agency to make change. We start by being practical. We start with the real materials in our hands. And then we share the knowledge and the insights, and we develop strategies, and we can go back and then make better and make better. So my material was polyester for many, many years. It's not really anymore, but I am working with recycled polyesters. Now I work with a range of different materials, but recycling and upcycling polyester is where I started more than 20, 25 years ago. So I bring you the point of view of a practice researcher. And I think with any presentation, it's really important to understand the point of view of the speaker. So I bring 20 years of this sort of funded research and the insights that have arisen from that funded research around design strategy. I put this slide together recently to sort of realize that I started with funded projects 20 years ago, which specifically wanted to look at the decisions that designers made when making a textile and how those decisions could be made better in a more informed way to create a textile with less impact on the environment. So it's been a really nice sort of timeline of UK funding into Swedish funding. We have some great Swedish entrepreneurs and academics here today, and I'm very grateful for the 10 years of funding and the opportunity to work with scientists in Sweden in the Mecenatura Future Fashion project, and the EU funding too, more recently from the Trash to Cash project, and now currently the Hairwear project. And there's a little display just outside here with the Hairwear work, and do come and grab me if you want to know more about it. 20 years of coming up with guidelines for designers. So what have I got to share with you today? What can I suggest you look at? Well, being more than just a designer maker is one thing. We need to be, as designers, multi-skilled, flexible, open, aware. We need to learn to communicate. We must learn to collaborate. And being an educator is a really good parallel sort of role to being a designer and a maker. We need to share our insights. We need to find the words to actually voice the tacit knowledge that's in the making process so that we can steer those materials down the routes which we have hunches about. We know what clothes feel nice on the body in our wardrobe when we get dressed in the morning. We need those decisions to be externalized, to be part of the design process so that we can be more efficient in the making. So skills, the kind of skills that designers are being taught and encouraged and nourished are very different than they were 20 years ago when I went to college to learn about textiles. So nothing simple about the CV, but I'll keep talking about simplicity and complexity because we mean different things by that. Life and our career paths are complex and ever-changing. We have portfolio careers now as designers and not just a single job. So let's take our skills forward and let's think about how we make a better industry and how we make circular textiles. So you'll all know this diagram. It's very helpful to explain the linear to recycling to circular. The act of recycling puts something in use again, but maybe eventually it will get incinerated or composted. But in a circular economy, the ambition, the great ambition, is that the resources get reused in perpetuity. And this single definition is really important because this doesn't happen very often, and it's technically very difficult, and it's logistically really difficult. So I think it's the Ellen MacArthur Foundation calls things circular-ish. We won't have all textiles being circular, but we will have a main share of textiles being circular. We can have reprocessing of textiles. They can be used again and again. We can add virgin elements to replenish the pot, to keep them going. But we have to do so much change to make this possible, and we have to do it in the right way and in the right places because it won't happen right across the board. And it's complicated, I'm sorry, but it is. This butterfly you'll know really well from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Materials exist in a biological or a technical cycle. This really helps us understand the end of life, the intention for the material, its origins, and then its intentions. But it's not simple with textiles and fashion because we blend, we mash these things up. We take something that is from the material cycle and we synthesize it and we turn it into something technical. And we can't take it back yet to the natural, but we can take the natural and the synthetic and we can mix them together to make things stronger, to make things cheaper, to make things lighter. So this second diagram, this visualization is a lit review of all the different materials and how they're currently, research is currently ongoing into how they're being reprocessed. The flows are all over the place. Where is that shoe going? Where is that dress going? What is happening to all of these materials? It's not simple. But we can get better at this. We can have more focused, direct action, more intention, and we can make more appropriate decisions, and we can work together to make the systems work. So I like big numbers. I like the word number 10. I like these meta themes. And these have come out of this 20-year portfolio of working. I want to think about circular textiles and the role of the designer in the broadest sense possible, in the way in which it can bring about societal change. So it's going to hold on to your hats. It's going to be a quite fast and furious bit of the talk now as we go through these 10 different themes. So, sustainable, the beginning of this conversation, from green to eco to sustainable to circular to socio-economic, technical change. We are progressing as designers through these different terms and framings. The fashion and textile industry has many different impacts, from food scarcity, air and water pollution, human rights, exploitation of materials, deforestation. What we're trying to do when we talk about sustainability is preserve what we have and maybe even improve. Maybe regenerative design will be giving back and adding to the world. But are we doing this? Do we have an industry that's sustainable? Far from it. We're still in a very exploitative phase. But we have the ideas, and we certainly have the science. Have we got the understanding? Are we teaching sustainability and regeneration yet to our students? Not really, not yet. The buzz now is all about net zero, carbon neutral, net zero, ambitions to cut carbon emissions. And I like having goals And it's important to be simple and set goals because we can all understand them and work towards them, but they're never the full picture. But what we can understand is that if we use recycled materials more, if we make things recyclable, and if we make them last longer in the period that they're in use, we could, and this is from WRAP's Textiles 2030 report, we could contribute a 26% saving in the textile industry in the UK. So circularity can help. It can take us some of the way on this journey to improvement. That's going to need investment, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. That's going to need a lot of change. And what if, when we're investing in that change, we actually do other things as well? We make not just recyclable textiles beneficial to the companies who are investing in it, but what if we actually fold in some other considerations to improve other areas of the industry? So, minimal. It means buying less. This is from Mecenatura Future Fashion Research. If we buy just 10% less, wear 10% longer, our clothes would have a huge impact. If we cut out the most toxic range of 10% of chemicals, our whole footprint could shrink. So small, realistic changes within the consumer, within the industry, could actually have a significant improvement. And I think it's got to be about improvements that are manageable, because we're also thinking about food, we're also thinking about travel, we're thinking about our cars, we're thinking about war and the impact of oil and heating our homes this winter. We've got a lot to think about. So we shouldn't be saying stop buying, only buy expensive, nice clothes. It's not realistic. Do you have teenagers? We need to work with people's real lives, and we need to show them ways to contribute to the change that are manageable. Technical, we have recycling technologies, we have ways to reprocess our materials. Mechanical, the oldest, been in existence a long time, Prato, we can see the activity there still. Chemical recycling, the new growth area, really exciting, because when you're chemically recycling, you've got a soup, a liquid that you can add things to and engineer before you then extrude a new fibre, and that fibre can work in different ways that traditional materials can't. So really exciting, needs huge investment, is on its way. Or do we make things biodegradable? Do we make things so that they can actually compost away naturally? Or do we do water solubility? No, but it's possible. Or do we let people take things home and actually compost sort of domestically? These are the end-of-life options for our materials. They all have different investment plans. They all have different activities surrounding them. As designers, we really need to know about them. We need to be understanding them at the earliest stage, so that when we're choosing materials, we're choosing the forward route. We're essentially making a commitment to what goes on after our design process has taken place. Designing for EOL, end of life. So we're not just sort of sitting down and saying, what shall I make? This will be nice. We're going, which recycling, end of life industry activity am I part of? What will happen to my garments? What will I want the consumer to have, to own, to wear, to enjoy, to hand on? And then how will they send it on for forward processing? Which route are we signing up for? Biological. So we now know we can have biosynthetics. We don't have to use crude oil to make polyester. For example, we can get our synthetics from non-fossil sources, and we're making great progress with this. But even more exciting is bio-based waste as a resource, so making materials from, let's say, agri-waste. What we want to be doing is not using agriculture or resources that could be used for food. We need to use waste from agriculture and food production to make our new materials. So we're right from the outset reducing the carbon footprint, the water use, the overall life cycle assessment by looking at all of our waste streams and then engineering our new bio-based materials. Really exciting, but huge gaps in knowledge, because what happens at the end of life? And actually, that cactus material or that carrot material, what happens? How has it been processed? How has it been given its strengths? What's been added? And therefore, how will it go down one of those 5 end-of-life routes? Our current work on the Hereware project is mapping those materials, these new bio-based materials, into our material wheel to really show how a material is made, produced, maybe best used before it goes to an appropriate end-of-life route. So we really need to understand a lot more about these new bio-based materials and make sure that they are contributing to our recycling economies. Geo-local, so that these are some of the more social and political themes now that we need to be thinking about. In a project like She Makes, we're looking at the development of gender equity for women and girls in the industry, closing the gender gap by increasing their skills and knowledge around materials, their ability to work with materials in innovative ways. Circularity requires quite a lot of people to do quite a lot of things. Let's of course assume that the consumer has to act differently, but actually the life cycle extension, that whole kind of reuse, the sharing, the remaking, the repair, the remanufacture, all of that needs a hands-on approach. There are micro businesses flourishing from all of these little activities and interventions along the life cycle of a textile. These are opportunities for social innovation. These are opportunities for us to explore how we can improve the lives of people in the supply chain. Temporal, time. Probably, I think, one of the nicest outcomes from the Mecenatura Future Fashion project was the fact that we considered the length of the life cycle, not just recyclability and that design strategy, but actually the design strategy to make things last a long time and to make things super fast. So we worked with the Swedish brand Philippa Carr to make the Eternal Trench, a 30-year classic black trench coat, unisex, from recycled material, able to be recycled, repairable, waterproofed with a very low impact coating. All of the different approaches we developed and strategized with them. But I think the single thing that was the most important was they developed the design brief by talking to the recycler. They found who they going to work with once they'd chosen the polyester, and then they went through with them what would make a good recycled product for them to handle later on. And they're thinking about 30 years' time. They're thinking about what this recycling plant is going to be receiving from them in 30 years' time when this garment is finally no longer in use. It means that design team had to really think very differently about their role in this process. But let's not forget fast, because as much as you'll hear it in the media, fast fashion, evil curse of the world, thing is, it's just not going to go away. It's not going to just disappear. And if we can buy better clothes than fast, great, but there are millions of people that are still buying it and need change in their wardrobes. They need speed. There is a need for speed. There really is. In a luxury fashion company, they deplored this idea, but actually when we asked them to bring in garments from their wardrobe by the brand that they had worn to death and those that they had not worn at all, there was a lot of stuff they'd never worn at all. How is that good? Why is that not being worn? I think I might be a skirt person. I'm not really, and I bought it, and then I'm actually not a skirt person. There are no end to the narratives, to the stories around why things don't get worn. So people change, people have ideas, people have moments, body size changes, friendship group change. We need change. So fast needs to be redeveloped. We need to really re-explore this idea of speed. And I think circularity And our material innovations could be really important here. Low impact, light, non-traditional manufacturing and processing could be really important here. Personal. Let's make clothing more personal. Let's let people in. Let's give them freedom to manipulate, to change, to actually sort of engineer looks. This very early work I did, the Black Hack shirt, a very early piece of work from the Mecenatura Future Fashion Project, gave people an iron at home and the ability to change, to transform a shirt in their wardrobe. We need to be teaching people wardrobe maintenance, wardrobe care, wardrobe change, and allow them to develop a relationship with their wardrobe. Socio-political. Yeah, this is my big beef at the moment. Design education, art and design education in primary schools. I don't know what's happening in Hungary, but in the UK, this is very problematic. The lack of investment, the focus on the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, maths. Art is being underfunded, taken out of the curriculum. The users of the future are really unaware of materials and have very little awareness about the impact of their clothes. Our school uniforms, the behaviours of parents and students around uniforms is sort of symptomatic really of how they are then going to go forward in life. So how can we as designers engage in the education of younger consumers using materials, using recycled circular ideas in more creative ways and actually embed this thinking in the education system at an earlier stage? She makes again, how can we be taking these beyond the university culture, beyond the traditional academic infrastructure, making online access to education more available to actually not just improve the behaviours of consumers, but enable designers to access circularity, circular materials, make their own circular materials, make their own way in the world, make their own small micro businesses. Scale. Scale means bigger, large, scaling up, but it also means, which we do need, of course, because investment, the technological investment in the recycling of materials is a huge bill. But it's also scaling out. It's also enabling lots and lots of these micro businesses to be reusing and repurposing our textiles and fashion. And it's perhaps this scaling out that's got the most social potential. This is a map I drew from my service shirt at the end of the Mecenatura project, where when I made a 50-year shirt, I could see that it travelled around an area in London, touching the hands of many people. Small businesses, many of them were involved in remaking and sort of this helping the flow of a garment over time. So it's sort of scaling outwards as well as scaling upwards. I know this is spelt wrong, it's intentional. Well, is it feasible? How are we going to get the money for the change? Where does the investment come from for the technology that we need? It's got to be done within a new economic model. We have to be working within the world's operating system, its planetary boundaries, another brilliant piece of Swedish research, with perhaps Kate Raworth's donut economics. We've got to rethink the economic model to enable our materials, our clothes, our access to fashion, to work within the limits of the planet. And this is going to require all kinds of new collaborations. Maybe look at Circular Economy Amsterdam and how they're working with circular cities to really see this, how this might work in action. So down to my last minute, I'm just going to leave you with this call to arms, World Circular Textiles Day. There's a lot of information there. Was it simple? I'm not sure. I tried to make it simple. We need to come together. You don't have to do all of this. The thing is, you choose which area as a designer you want to focus in and specialize in, and then you find your team, you find your community, and you collaborate, and you bring these different ideas and knowledge areas together, and you make change together. And World Circular Textiles Day is a year-on-year festival, a celebration of what the industry is doing, and an invitation to designers to make better textiles. So join us this year. It's on the 7th of October. The 8th is a Saturday. We'll have an online conference, and you can see our global update of what's happening in circular textiles around the world. I'll finish there. 2 seconds, 1 second, and out.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. Yeah, don't go. So we have an opportunity for questions for Rebecca. So we've got 5 minutes, I think, for people to ask questions. It's a big task, I know. Who's going to ask that first question? But we have a question. Brilliant, fantastic. Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, we got a microphone for you. I'll step back down.
Oh, even better. Hi. First, thanks for the amazing lecture. It was easy to consume, although it was a lot of information as well, but very interesting. So, first question. The thing that struck me the most was the garment that was designed with a 30-year plan, that was designed with the recycler in mind. Now, when we've done different projects, and we discussed this with Mr. Henning Bulbs, who is the director of the Circular Economy Institute in Wuppertal, one of the key figures in sustainability, a key topic was, if you design a garment for, let's say, Paris, for Wuppertal, for London, the LCA analysis is going to be very different. You have different systems, different recyclers. So any thoughts on how you can manage to kind of make one product work and not just make local products, because fashion is a global thing, right?
Yeah, life cycle assessment is one of my favorite things to talk about, because we're constantly arguing actually about what goes in those boxes, what assumptions go in those boxes, and what's not being measured. And I think it's really important sort of educationally for us all to understand how LCA works, and then to understand how one decision in one place has a different impact elsewhere. And that comes back to complexity again. It's great to take an LCA measurement of something, but actually what's changed in those boxes and what assumptions were incorrect and how much will that actually affect the product at the end of life. So we were specific to a region and a set of behaviours when we measured those products in Sweden. And it's remarkable how actually to drive one's car, to buy a product is worse than the overall impact of the product. I mean, it's phenomenal when we started to look into transportation. So the EU is funding projects that build the EU economy around locality and connected digital manufacturing hubs. This is I suppose my answer to you is about the way in which we're going to try to make in the future. Not shipping from different continents, not bringing in materials from Asia, but trying to make recycled local economies, but connected through digital technology around Europe, each of those micro factories having life cycle functions. So you can basically send a digital tag with your product around these networks. I'm talking about a future that doesn't exist yet, but I'm a researcher and that's what we're sort of aiming towards. But I think that the simple answer is we need much better LCA, and we need people, everybody involved in that LCA, because some of the assumptions they're not correct about how people use clothes. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's the best answer we got as well from Mr. Wiltz.
Okay.
It's like making loco, but I don't want to hog the spotlight. Maybe other people have questions. I'd love to discuss this with you later.
Okay, we'll have coffee.
So there are any other questions? Perhaps if I can just step in here, we got 1.5 minutes, but it's a bit like, if I understood correctly, and putting it in a simple way, your 10 commandments of circularity. I mean, I think a lot of these people here are at the beginning of their journey. Putting you on the spot, if there was one of these that you think should be prioritized, which one would it be?
Design for end of life. I mean, it's a different way of thinking, and if you go into any design studio right now, you're designing the beginning of the life. That's what you're thinking about. You're thinking about, what am I going to bring out? You know, where will it fit within the seasons? You know, maybe what it's going to retail for. But the point at which it's left your studio or it's hit the shop floor is the end of your thought process. And actually, we need to extend how we teach the supply chain, and we need to start at the end and say, you are, it's Braungart and McDonough stuff. You're not buying that material and owning it, you're borrowing that material. Borrow it, use it well, send it on some cycles, send it back to a cycle. So, design for end of life, that's my final tip. Okay,
Thanks very much. Thank you very much to Rebecca.